Hello, and welcome back. Our next speaker is no stranger to the stage. He has given an amazing TED Talk a couple of years ago that's super inspiring. Throughout his career, he personally started more than 150 organizations or companies, had 45 successful IPOs and acquisitions, and he's pretty proud to talk about his 60 or so failures and all the things that he learned from that. He founded and runs Idealab, which is here in Pasadena, and he uses it kind of as a repository for all of his crazy ideas. Please welcome to the Hackaday Super Conference stage, Bill Gross.
Thank you very much, Sophie. It's really an honor to be here. Today, I would like to share with you some thoughts on how to turn your idea into a successful business. And especially, I want to share with you some lessons learned, the things that I wish someone had told me 30 years ago when I was first starting some of my businesses that, boy, if I had known those then, I would have done things a lot differently. So at the very beginning, I want to divide this into two parts. First, my entrepreneurial experience, and second, my lessons learned. I started out with businesses even since I was a little boy. I was selling candy at the bus stop when I was 12 years old. I had my little Pan Am bag and Skittles and Reese's and Kit Kats, and I was selling them at the bus stop on my way to junior high school. And it was a lot of fun just learning how to buy low and sell high. I was buying candy bars 3 for a quarter at the Save-On drugstore, so 8 1/3 cents each, and selling them for 9 cents, selling them for 1 cent cheaper than the bookstore at school, making a whopping 2/3 of a penny each. But I made $400 over the years in my junior high school, and that gave me a lot of enthusiasm for buying something and selling it at a markup. When I got to high school, I started making solar devices. It was 1973, and there was the energy crisis in California. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and I started making kits and plans for solar devices. I made a little Stirling engine, little parabolic concentrator, and I took out ads in the back of Popular Science magazine, Scientific American, Popular Mechanics, and sold those kits and plans for $4. But over the years, I made enough money to pay my way through college. I ended up selling about 10,000 plans, so I made $40,000 selling those little kits and plans. And when I got into college, I went to school here in Pasadena. I got really bitten by the audiophile bug, and I started making loudspeakers. And I started designing, making, and selling some loudspeaker designs, and these are a few of my different designs. I had a pair of speakers on the left called the Valkyries, and on the right, lead cylinders. I made these lead cylindrical enclosures to try and make the damping of the cabinet much better than traditional loudspeakers. And then when I graduated from Caltech, it was the actual month that the IBM PC came out. So I went down to my local computer land on Lake Avenue in Pasadena, and I bought an IBM PC, and it came with a whopping 256K of RAM and one floppy drive, one 360K floppy. And it was just amazing how powerful that was in my mind compared to what I had seen in college. And I began learning how to write some software and worked on a natural language interface for Lotus 123. Lotus 123 was the top-selling spreadsheet at that time, and I made this natural language interface. I raised some money to go to the Comdex show in Las Vegas and showed it off. Lotus saw it, and I began a relationship with Lotus, and then Lotus eventually acquired my company in 1985, and that was a really, really exciting time for me to see my first intellectual property prospect turned into an actual acquisition by a software company. And at the time, Lotus was the biggest software company in the world. Microsoft was still just doing DOS and languages, but Lotus was an amazing company, so I tried to learn everything I could about the software industry from Lotus. I stayed there for 6.5 years, and I only left because my son started kindergarten. When my son started kindergarten, I wanted to make software to make him fall in love with learning. So I left Lotus and started a company called Knowledge Adventure, where we made educational software. And we made Knowledge Adventure, Space Adventure, Science Adventure, Dinosaur Adventure, and then a Jumpstart series of products. Jumpstart Kindergarten, Jumpstart First Grade. And I was really excited. I sent this presentation in to make sure it was okay before all the fonts and everything worked okay. And one of the people from Supply Frame, Hackaday, who received it said, I grew up using Jumpstart products when I was a kid. It was so heartwarming to see that. And that's exactly what I wanted to achieve, to really inspire kids and make them fall in love with learning. And we did that, and we grew that company, and then we sold that company in 1995 to Vivendi. And 1995 was the year that Netscape had its IPO. And at Knowledge Adventure, we were selling our products through distributors and then through retailers. So we would sell to distributors, and then we'd sell to like Egghead Software and CompUSA and Walmart and Target. But we were very, very disconnected from our customers. We wanted to be connected to our customers, but there were many layers between us and our customers. So then Netscape had its IPO, And I don't know if you remember how small the internet really was back then. There were 30 million users globally, only 30 million users. But I thought 30 million users, that's incredible. Think of what you could do if you could talk to all 30 million users directly with a web page. So I had all these ideas for products and projects you could make where you could talk to your end users directly. So I wanted to start a place where I could do many, many ideas at once. I had been a serial entrepreneur all my life up to that point. I wanted to try and be a parallel entrepreneur where I could do multiple things at once. But I couldn't do them all at once, so I wanted to start this place called Idealab. It was a technology incubator where under one roof, we could work on multiple ideas at once, and I would find separate CEOs to work on each of those ideas. So we'd spin each one off into a separate company. And it really was one of the original startup studios. There's a lot of startup studios around the world now, and I'm so glad that people are doing this in other places. And there's so many different shades of these too. There's startup studio, there's incubators, there's accelerators. We're really a little bit different because we work on prototyping the idea from scratch at the very beginning. Not that that's necessarily better, it's just different. And we really try and figure out which ones are viable and then turn those into businesses. And I tried to model it after what Thomas Edison had done. Thomas Edison had an incredible lab in New Jersey where he worked on many, many things, many that didn't make it, but many that he spun off into separate entities. So he spun off a whole separate entity for the phonograph. There's a whole separate phonograph company, a whole separate entity for the movie projector, a whole separate entity for the light bulb, General Electric. So many different things that spun out of there, and so many things that didn't work because he tried many, many different things. And that's what I was really hoping to do. And what we try to do is look for big opportunities, big things that are broken, and then try and brainstorm technological solutions to fix them. And we really believe that if you put people together in the right structure, that entrepreneurship can really unlock human potential and really make the world a better place. So we've tried to iterate and improve that structure over time, but I'll give you an example of what I mean. What I found at Knowledge Venture was if a person in a company has a significant equity stake and you share that with others, and maybe the significant number is more than 1%, 1%, 5%, 10%. You can make a company where people do things they would never have done if they were just an employee. All of a sudden, people start thinking like an owner and start doing unbelievable things. A little bit like you, if you are the inventor and the owner, you're thinking about this day and night. Well, the more you give equity to others, the more you unlock that in other people. And that's one thing I learned at Knowledge Venture, and that's one thing that we try to do at Idealab. My idea being, at Knowledge Venture, we had grown to 250 people. Well, by definition, at 250 people, every person in the company can't have 1% anymore. But by starting each new idea now and a separate company, it was like minting a new 100% equity pool. There was a new 100% that could be divided up among the people who would be focused just on that company, just on that project. So it really did unlock human potential by giving people those equity stakes. The other thing that I tried to do at Idealab, and I would urge all of you to do with your ideas, is to focus on the customer and try and find a way to outsource all the mechanics of running your business, all of the heartache and what I would say less important things. So I'll give you my example from Knowledge Venture. We've grown to 250 people. I was the CEO. I probably spent 20% of my time working on the product, looking at customers, interviewing parents, watching kids play with our products, and 80% of my time worrying about all the logistics, the rent, the building, the healthcare plans, the payroll, all the operational logistics. And I was dreaming of a way that could be flipped. I wanted to spend 80% of my time with the customers, and of course, you still have to do something as the CEO on the management and operational side, but I wanted that to be only 20%. So the way we did that at Idealab was we built up these organizations, an accounting organization, legal organization, human resources, and so on, where all the companies could share and use that, where each CEO could then focus only on their customer. Now, you might not have the access to these organizations from Idealab, but these organizations are popping up all over where you can sort of rent these things from the outside and then focus much, much more on your customer. That's really what I think the most important thing to do is to iterate and focus on what your customer needs are. So when we started Idealab, these were our first 12 ideas. Of these first 12 ideas, we started them, we seeded them each with $250,000, and we recruited a CEO to run each one, and only 7 of them made it. But 7 of them made it. 7 of them were able to receive some additional financing after our additional seed capital, and those went on to grow and become larger companies. The 5 of them that failed, we learned some lessons from those, and I've tried to abstract those lessons over time, and I'll share more of that with you from the other companies that we built since then. These were the first 12, and since then, as Sophie said, we've started more than 150 in many, many different categories. Across all of the companies, We've helped the companies, we put in the first $250,000, and then we've helped the companies raise an additional $3.5 billion. So we've gone to many, many different investors over the years to put in later rounds of financing in the companies. And then, as Sophie said, 45 of them have turned into successful IPOs or acquisitions. 45 of them are still operating, so hopefully they will turn into those, but 60 of them failed. So I want to try and share with you lessons learned, especially from some of the failures, because we learned a lot more from the ones that didn't succeed than from the ones that did succeed. The thing we're probably most proud of is we created 10,000 jobs, all of them starting right here in Pasadena. We're about a mile and a half away from this building in Old Town, Pasadena. And we really, really love the idea that we can bring in entrepreneurial talent, people who want to contribute to a startup, and then give them all the right incentives and alignment and dream to make something really, really successful. So I'll show you a few of the companies, and then I want to share you some of the lessons learned. One of the companies that we started way back when, 2001, we had this dream that there would be personal robotics in people's homes. I think we were way too early, way ahead of our time. We started out, this was a very early prototype I was making. I took a radio-controlled car as a base and rigged up a thing with 2 Logitech webcams and was starting to make the beginnings of a personal robot. And our dream was to make something like this. We called it ER1, Evolution Robotics 1. We wanted to make the home robot that was programmable by voice, that could recognize objects, and we started working on object recognition and movement and voice recognition. But it was the computing power, although good, and Wi-Fi had just been invented, so we can even first begin using wireless. We were way too early. We were not able to make it as a personal robot company, but we had developed a lot of navigation capabilities, a lot of in-house mapping. So we turned that capability into a different product, this product here, which turned out to be the Mint robotic floor cleaner. So we ended up making a product that was a little bit like what the Roomba was, except with a Swiffer pad for hardwood floors and for kitchens, as opposed to the Roomba, which was for carpeting. And we grew the company. We grew it to 25 million in sales. And eventually, iRobot acquired the company. And so we had a very successful exit. But you can see it was quite a pivot from my initial vision. This, then to this, then to this, back to this. But we were listening to the market, and we were realizing that we were too early with that product. It was very, very challenging to make the pivots. But we really looked at what the customers were saying and what the availability was, what customers wanted. And we weren't making a product that people wanted with this, but we were making something that people wanted with this. Another company that I started that I was really, really excited about, this was started about the same time that Tesla started, actually. I was really, really a big believer in electric vehicles, and I wanted to make a very, very streamlined electric vehicle that could go on a much smaller battery. So we built this car. This was called the APera. It was a 3-wheeled vehicle that was ultra, ultra streamlined. You can see it almost looks like a dolphin. It was so, so smooth and streamlined. And it was so aerodynamic. It was less than the aerodynamic drag of a bicycle. And at 55 miles an hour, it only took 55 watt-hours to drive on the freeway. So you could go very, very far on a small battery pack. We ended up building 5 of these. We got prototypes. We raised money. We were able to raise capital to build those, but we weren't able to raise money to go into production. So this was an unsuccessful company. We were trying to raise money around the time of the big recession. We weren't able to do that, so this company ended up failing. But we really, really tried hard to make a difference. This started out with a vision to try and make something ultra, ultra aerodynamic for 2 passengers to use the least amount of energy to move people from point A to point B. Another company I started in the hardware space that did work out, was very challenging, was this company ESolar, where we built computer-controlled mirrors to reflect sunlight up to a tower to get high concentration and then create steam and then run a steam turbine to make electricity. The benefit of this compared to photovoltaic power is that you can make a power after the sun goes down because you can hold on to the steam, hold on to the heat after the sun goes down. So it's a form of thermal storage that allows you to make power around the clock. We built this company here in Pasadena. We ended up building a large facility in the Mojave Desert in Lancaster, and then we ended up building a huge facility with 50,000 mirrors in Australia. So we started out just with this idea to make individual, smaller computer-controlled mirrors. You can see these mirrors are only about 1 meter by 1.5 meters, so they're much, much smaller than traditional large-scale heliostats. But by using the advances in computation and putting a small computer in each mirror, we could get enough accuracy in individual small mirrors that other people had achieved with a lot of precision in larger mirrors. So those are just a few examples of hardware companies I started. One that didn't make it at all, one that did make it, one that pivoted to make it with Evolution Robotics. And now I want to try and use that to give you some of these lessons that I wish someone had told me a long time ago. Some of the lessons that I started with when I first started making companies, I realized at the beginning, like one of the ones I've always known was you need to be so passionate about the particular product or company you're building, because that's what you need to carry you through dark times. So that's probably the biggest lesson I would say, but that's one that I did know when I started. I'm going to tell you some of the things that I didn't know when I started, because those are the ones that I think were harder for me to realize, harder for me to discover, and hopefully would be helpful to you in whatever project, whatever endeavor you have. So the first one is timing. So Sophie said I gave a whole TED talk on timing, but timing is a big reason for a lot of the failures that we had. Of the 60 companies that didn't make it, a lot of them were just way too early. So let me tell you about a short version about how timing plays a factor and how you can assess the timing of your idea. But first, this quote. Any new, bold idea is going to go through these 3 stages. If you have something that's new and is a game changer, at first it's going to be ridiculed. Then, once it starts getting some traction, it's actually going to be opposed, because you're going to start threatening people. And only if you power through those 2 first phases and make it to third, being accepted as self-evident, have you actually changed the world. It's very hard to make it through all 3 of those. You can do it, though, and that's how you can make a positive impact. The challenge is to figure out if you're too early and you're pushing spaghetti uphill, or pushing way too hard to actually make the difference. And here's my best analysis on how you can judge that. If there are other factors that you need for your success to have to go into place that you don't have control over, and they're not there yet, that would indicate that maybe the timing isn't quite right. Now, what that means doesn't mean you necessarily have to give up. It just means you have to last long enough until the timing is right. And I'll give you some examples. So Uber is an incredible company. Uber and Airbnb, both amazing, amazing companies. They both had great innovations, but a lot of people had tried some of those ideas before. What was so incredible about them is they were timed very, very well. Not necessarily planned. You can be lucky, by the way, with timing too. But an example with Uber and Airbnb, Uber was timed beautifully because it was a recession and it was very easy for them to recruit drivers. Airbnb had I don't know if you know some of the, have ever heard the founding story of Airbnb, but the founders of Airbnb were art students who needed to make some extra money. So they put down an air mattress in their apartment in San Francisco for a design conference that was coming into town and rented it out. And then they thought maybe they could make a business out of this, and they went pitching VCs. And they pitched a really great VC, Fred at Union Square Ventures in New York, and he said, there's no way anybody is going to ever rent out a room of their house to a complete stranger, and passed and did not invest. And I think he was wrong, obviously, but it wasn't only that he was, he might have been partially right, but there was a huge recession going on, and people needed extra money, and people did it because of that. So Airbnb was perfectly timed. Now, it was perfectly timed also because they had that same problem. They needed to make some extra money themselves. So it was all a beautiful amount of the timing that took place. Also with Uber, if someone had tried Uber maybe 3 or 4 years before the iPhone, before everybody had GPS, that wouldn't have worked. So I'll give you an example of one of the companies that we started too early that did fail. In the late 90s, we had a lot of successful e-commerce companies. We had etoys.com, we had tickets.com, we had cooking.com, and I was trying to figure out what area is going to move online next after e-commerce. And I realized one area for sure is going to move online is entertainment. So I wanted to make an entertainment online company, and I bought a great URL. It was one of the few single-letter URLs called z.com. We bought that URL. We got a great CEO from Disney. We raised money. We were able to raise $10 million and even signed contracts. For $1 million, we signed a contract with Adam Sandler. For $1 million, we signed a contract with Chris Rock to make exclusive content for us in this new entertainment site, z.com. We made some great content, really, really great, and people loved it. But here's what the problem was. Broadband penetration was only at 20% in 2000. To watch a video in your browser, you had to download codecs and plugins to get that to work. Flash hadn't even been invented yet. So we had this product that the few people who could enjoy liked, but those were things that we couldn't influence in the environment. We couldn't force people to get to 50% broadband penetration. We had to wait for that. We couldn't, maybe we could have invented our own plugin, but we didn't have the power to distribute our own plugin. We needed someone like the browser to do that. So sure enough, the company went out of business in 2003. In 2004, Flash was invented. In 2005, YouTube came out, and broadband penetration crossed 50%. It only took 5 years, It only took 5 years to go from 20% to 50%. At 50%, we could have had a business. At 20%, we couldn't have a business. So we should have looked more closely at these other factors in the world that were important for us to succeed and just said to ourselves, either we're too early or let's lower our burn rate. Let's survive until 2005. Let's wait till the S-curve crosses of the adoption of broadband penetration. So looking very carefully at these outside factors is a very important thing in assessing timing. Okay, next on the idea. Well, I think it's very important to find a contrarian idea that's true. Here's two great quotes from two great investors. Peter Thiel saying, tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you on. Meaning, find something that you really know, but that other people don't believe yet. Now, of course, it's hard to also be right on that. And then Ray Dalio, great hedge fund investor, says, the consensus is already priced into everything, like in the stock market. So to be a great inventor or investor, you need to bet against the consensus, but also be right. So I think a very important thing that we try and look at with our ideas is, are we betting against something? Are we really doing something different and distinct from other people? And do we really have the conviction and some special knowledge as to why that is true? So really think about that when you're evaluating the thing you're working on, if it has some of these properties. If it has these properties and you're right, you really have something big. That really is something big. Unfortunately, this is almost equally hard to discern as the timing, but it's something that I really, really try and look at very, very consciously and really with a good truth, and including looking at outside people and listening to other advisors to really figure out if you have that contrarian idea that's also true. Next thing I learned that was painful, I did this many times not knowing this, don't be dilution sensitive, be success sensitive. Okay, right now in the world, it is really, really easy to get capital. If you have an idea and you're passionate and you can put together a team, you can get the money to take your idea forward. That's really, really an incredible thing that's changed over the course of my career. Early on, I was so concerned about selling the equity and giving up too much, and that was always a mistake. Think about this from your perspective and the investor perspective. The investor perspective is they're taking a lot of bets and they need one of them to pay off. You're taking one bet and you need that one to pay off. You need a much higher batting average than an investor needs. So you just want to get the partners around you and the capital you need to be successful. You have a digital chance of success. You have a 1 or 0. Giving up a little bit more equity to get the right person or to get the right thing or to be able to propel yourself along or to make sure you don't got a business, it's always important to just do that. So a lot of our companies, when they're having a challenge, I'm always urging the CEO, just take whatever money you need at whatever price. Don't worry about that. You need to live another day to get that chance. You need to live another day to get from 2003 to 2005, say with Z.com. Like that CEO should have taken some money at a lower valuation, but he was too proud to do that and didn't want to do that. So instead the company went out of business. So it's really, really important, I think, to just be success sensitive. If your idea is still strong, if you're still passionate about it, just find a way to get the money you need and don't worry about the dilution. Then next, it's not a little bit about product market fit, it's all about product market fit. And let me give you the example about this. It is so important to build something that people are pulling from you rather than something that you are pushing to them. It is so hard to push something on somebody. You can't afford the marketing dollars to push something to somebody. But you can iterate your product to get it so they want to pull it from you. And to iterate your product means to really be looking for the feature or functions that makes them have insatiable demand for what you're making. And really, really to find out what those are. And they're almost never going to tell you. They won't tell you explicitly. They might show you with their smile. They might show you with their reaction. They might indirectly say it. They might say it in some oblique way. But it's your job to find that out. And you so win or lose on customer delight that if you can find that customer delight, there's almost nothing else that can stop you. Once you have that, you have the opportunity to really, really get your product and your vision all the way to the finish line. So I really think that sometimes it also only takes a very small twist to take something from them not really liking it to them really loving it. And you've got to find out where that twist is. So putting your effort, if you're the founder, it's your idea, it's up to you to be gnawing yourself over that, to be really, really searching for what is the thing that gets my product right from a snoozer to delight. How do I get it to people are so excited when they see what I have? And a lot of that comes from you being out there with customers, watching them, talking to them, and seeing what it's going to take to make that happen. It's almost true that it only can come from you. It can come from elsewhere in your company, other of your partners, but then you have to listen to them all the time and be very open-minded to hear it coming from anywhere. Okay, next. About persistence. Well, I told you you have to be passionate about your idea to make it across the finish line. This story, this is incredible, how sometimes you start off, you feel this is the best idea ever, then this is fun, oh, it's harder than I thought, oh, it's going to be a lot of work, oh my God. There's this dark swamp of despair in the middle before you come out the other side, and oh my God, only people see this part above the line. Outsiders see that and they think, oh, and that's the stories that the press often lionize and everything about how great it was, and you only hear about this. But there's always this. There's always this. So you have to know that's going to be there. And I think the difference between success and failure are those people who can power through those tough phases in the middle. So you really have to know that's going to happen. And that's happened for everyone. That happens to us in every one of our companies. There's almost no company that just sails through and starts off, this is the best idea ever, and ends up at, oh my God, with nothing in between. And even the greats of the greats, Steve Jobs had that. Walt Disney had that. They all had dark swamps of despair in the middle before they got to their end goal. I didn't even know until recently some of these stories about Walt Disney, how he was practically broke in 1940. He was on his last pennies. He borrowed everything he could to do his crazy idea. His crazy idea was, I'm going to make the first feature-length animated cartoon. And that came out in 1942. And he spent everything on that. And when that came out, when Snow White came out, that was the turning point of his company for another decade or two. But even then, he had another dark time. In 1955, right before then, he mortgaged everything to build Disneyland, everything. And everybody thought that was a crazy idea, something so extravagant. But he really believed that. He went through so much dark swamp of despair in the middle to get to that. And of course, Steve Jobs fired from his own company, Next not working out. There was a Hail Mary that Steve Jobs made after he came back to Apple, where he got $100 million from Bill Gates. Microsoft invested $100 million in Apple. They were down to 2 weeks from their last payroll, and they put $100 million in. And the reason they put the money in was because they were violent competitors at that time, was just to reduce their antitrust problems by keeping a competitor alive with another spreadsheet and another word processor. So they were just trying to help their own legal problems by putting that money in. So it took every crazy little thing for Steve Jobs to make it and then turn around the company to become the most valuable company on the planet. So it's just incredible how you should just expect this and know that you have to fight through that. And I thought that whenever I was experiencing that meant the end. And now I know that's part of the terrain, that you just have to be ready for that and understand that. And when you power through it, that's what separates the winners from the losers. Okay, this one I really didn't learn until I was 35. I can't believe I wish someone had taught me this one in college. And this is building a complementary team. And let me tell you about this. So I know about the personality types that are in this room, because you're probably a lot like me. And you need to surround yourself with some other people that are not like you. And let me tell you what I learned here. So imagine that there are I learned this after I was having real problems at Knowledge Venture. I was 35 years old, we had 250 people, and we were all warring with one another. I told you already I was spending 80% of my time dealing with problems inside the company, management things, as opposed to dealing with the product. But here's why. Imagine that there's these 4 caricature styles of personality. Now, no one of you, no one of any of us is only one of these. We're all a fingerprint combination of these. But let me give you the example. There's the entrepreneurial style, there's the producer style, there's the administrator, and there's the integrator. So for example, the entrepreneur is the person who comes up with the idea, the person who has the dream, the person who has the vision, the person who's going to carry everything forward. That's always the person who starts the company, starts the business, starts everything. The producer is the person who gets things done, who builds things, who ships the product, who sells it. The administrator is the person who organizes things, collects the bills, collects the payables, pays the payroll, gets the rent paid on time, gets the building. And the integrator is the person who understands about other people and holds them together. So let me tell you why that's so important. Here's the E. A company always starts with E. A company will start out with the idea, and let's say this is on this axis, on the x-axis is time, and on the y-axis is success. So the company will start out with E, and it will start going, and eventually, if you only have E at a company, you only have vision and dreams, you won't finish the product, you won't make anything, you won't get anything done, and you go out of business. So for me, I'm a very high E, And I'm a little bit of a P. I can get things done. I can finish a product. I know how to pull an all-nighter. I know how to finish something and get a test in or get a product done. I know how to do that. So I'm a little bit good. I'm not as good at that as some people, but I can finish it, and that's the next skill you need in the company. You need a P. If you don't have any P in the company, you'll just have the E and die. If you get the P in the company, okay, you can finish the product, you can make a sale, you can get some first revenues, but eventually you'll still die unless you bring in some A. Why do you need some A? You need some A because you won't collect the bills, you won't collect the payroll, you won't get the payables, you won't send out invoices, you'll eventually go out of business. If you're just inventing and producing and selling even, you'll still go out of business unless you bring some administrative skill into the company. And then eventually, even with A, you'll eventually fail if you don't bring some I in the company, and the I is the integrator that solves all the issues between these, because basically, in the extreme, all of these people hate each other's guts. You know, in the extreme, these people don't get along. They just have a different worldview. So what you need to do, and this is what I learned, is you need to learn to respect these other skills. And that's what I finally did. And now finally, in our companies, we really try and build a balance. And let me give you a specific example. Let's say that these 4 extreme types, so I'll tell you my profile, if it's not obvious, but think about each of your own as well. So I'm an E, very high, off the charts. I'm a P, medium, I can do a little bit this. I'm a negative A, meaning anything that has to do with administration, not only do I not like, I think it's a negative, I don't have anything to do with it, but I now realize I have to get someone else to take care of that. And then on an integrator, I used to be negative, like I couldn't resolve conflicts between other people, and now I'm a little bit positive on this. So now I can at least handle that a little bit, and that's important. But I don't have to do everything. I just have to get that into the company. So I'll give you the example. Let's say we have these 4 extreme personality types here up on the podium, and we're looking at the back window there, and we see on the window there's something blocking the view of the park. There may be a scratch on the window. So the way different personalities would look at that would be the P would look at that and say, boy, there's a scratch on the window. Why don't we just take care of that right after this meeting? The A would look at that and say, you know, there's a scratch on the window. Why don't we make a form for anything that goes wrong in the company? We'll make a stack of them, and we'll go through them in ascending order and take care of them. That's the way the A looks at things. They just look at it that way, like let's make a system to do that. The E would look at that and go, God, look at that in the park over there. What can we build over there? It doesn't see the window, it doesn't see the scratch. It's just seeing the park across the street. And the I looks at that and says, I wonder what those 3 people are thinking. And it doesn't see the window, the park, anything, and it's just looking at people. And how are they feeling? And what can we do to make those people work together? So think about how, for me, how foreign that is to some of you, like how foreign that way of thinking is, but how important that is to get into the company. Because if you don't have that, you can't have harmony, and you can't be successful. And if you make a company that has all of these in harmony, you can kill it. Like if you get these in harmony, it's just unbelievable. It's amazing what you can do when you have these multiple styles together and you have them all in harmony. So I really, really recommend that. This is one of the biggest things that I never knew about at all. I was always just saying, just do. Come up with more ideas and do them faster. Like what's wrong with that? But it's that alone won't do it. That alone will get you started. That alone will maybe get you to here. But if you really want to make a great company, make a great business, you have to go further than that. And then the last one is the best entrepreneurs are good storytellers. So I didn't know this at all. I didn't know how much of being a successful entrepreneur is telling your story over and over and over again. It's needed to hire the best people. It's needed to get your investors. It's needed to close your customers. It's needed to motivate your team. What you want to do is come up with a way to tell the story about your company that just makes it sound inevitable. Meaning, I saw this is happening in the world, I'm good at this, I took that, I did this, and now we're making that. Like you want it to just be, the whole thing just fits together and it all makes sense. Like people who are evaluating your business always want something that they can understand, believe in, and have it make sense. So coming up with that story, it's a much bigger factor in success than I ever imagined. It really is about, it comes down to also building your brand, but it's everything that you use to move your company forward. Like it's a really important part. So I really urge you to think much more about the story behind what you're doing in addition to the actual details of it. Having that coherent story about it really, really matters. So if I summarize all of these, I would still say, this is the best time in history for entrepreneurship. When I graduated from college, it was not a good time. I was going up against headwinds. It was really, really tough to raise money for your idea. Entrepreneurship wasn't lionized the way it is. there wasn't capital available, there weren't the tools available, and there wasn't the world available. So there's money available, but now the whole world is available. So the incredible thing that's happened now. So my little speaker business, what could I do? I could let's go back even to the beginning. My little candy business, I could reach people at my bus stop or right outside of PE at school. My speaker business, I could reach people in the local Pasadena area. My knowledge adventure business, I reach people around the country, but with distributors in between. With Netscape, my early internet businesses, I could reach my 30 million users and then eventually 50 million, 100 million users. Now there's 3 billion always-on devices. It used to be there were 30 million people online for 10 minutes a day. Now there's 3 billion people online for 10 hours a day. So there's just a billion times more access, and you can reach the people who want what you make. You can find the people wherever they are. So you need to find something that resonates with people, make something that satisfies them, and you can find it anywhere. And now there's a huge amount of what I call permissionless innovation possible. You don't need anybody's permission to do it. You can just make your thing, like so many different areas between what you can make in the browser, what you can make for the App Store. Of course, you need the App Store's permission to put it in the store, but other than that, that's pretty mild. With cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin, you don't need anybody's permission. It's so much invention possible. So it really, really can use your brain power in a way that never before. It used to be so hard to reach. Like, think back to the Renaissance. Think back if Leonardo had the reach of the planet with his ideas. He had the reach of Florence. He could reach how far his horse could ride. He could reach Rome in 10 days. The idea that you can reach the whole planet is so incredible right now. I really think that it's an amazing, amazing time, amazing opportunity. And almost every business and every business process can be disrupted with new technology. And there's the application of mobile data, AI, computation power. Every idea that you might have can impact so many different ways of life. I think it's a very, very, very exciting time. I hope it would be it would make me feel so good if any one of even the tidbits of those ideas help you be even marginally more successful in any idea you're taking forward. I feel I've been so fortunate with these companies and what I've learned over the years. I'm just trying to give back and try and share everything I can. I really, really hope that even a tiny bit of this could help you in some small way. I'd love to try and talk to you further if I can help in any other way. I'm so swamped with the companies that we have, but if I can answer a question of yours, I'd be happy to do it. Feel free to reach me. I'm Bill at Idealab.com. I'm also always sharing what I learn on Twitter at Bill_Gross, and I'll be around here today as well. I want to thank you very much. You've been a great audience.